Secretary, when he asked me to take on this role, he called on New Year's Eve last year, and I said I didn't want a job, and he said, I need you to do this. And he said, look, I need you to do 4 things and do them at the same time. And this is the balance we've tried to strike throughout here. We need to move the money out the door quickly, because this really is about job creation and economic recovery, and the jobless rate remains too high, and the economic recovery remains too tepid, and we need to do our part to make sure that we achieve those goals. We have to do it through a set of competitive processes so the American taxpayer gets a good return on those hard-earned tax dollars that we're spending. We have to do it in a way that is both transparent and accountable, because frankly the American public is not sure that we can spend this money wisely, and so that's why we have to have a great deal of transparency in this process. And as somebody who grew up in a private company for 25 years, the notion of being that transparent is sometimes a little uncomfortable. On the other hand, I hope it creates that sense of confidence in the American taxpayer that they know where those monies are being spent. So every time we make a decision, it should be up on the website, so you can see who's receiving the funds and what they're doing with those funds, and because the American public has to be a judge that those funds are being spent wisely. And then finally, we have to make a meaningful down payment on the nation's energy and environmental future, because this is a journey, a long-term journey, and if we make the right down payment, and if we can then bring the private sector in and create these markets over the long term, then the Recovery Act will have been successful. In recent weeks, we announced funding for a whole series of great projects. Last time I was in Detroit with Secretary Chu, we announced $8 billion of funding in the first advanced technology vehicle manufacturing loans, $5.9 billion to Ford here in Michigan, another $1.6 billion to Nissan to fund the LEAF program, and then $500 million to Tesla. On August the 5th, we announced 48 projects in 25 states. The Vice President was here in Michigan, again, talking about advanced batteries and electrification technologies, because one of the things we're trying to do here is to make sure that we make a down payment to stand up an entire supply chain at the same time, as opposed to just doing a piece here or a piece there and then having that piece not be able to stand up because the rest of the supply chain wasn't there in time. Also in August, we announced $300 million for Clean Cities grants to really demonstrate deployment of integrated both advanced fuel vehicles as well as fueling infrastructure, because one of the things that you all are deeply familiar with is if you don't have the infrastructure to go with the fueling, it's kind of hard to make the advanced vehicles actually work. And in September, we announced $528 million loan, conditional loan commitment to Fisker for our first plug-in hybrid electric vehicle loan as part of the Advanced Technology Vehicle Manufacturing Program. As we work through the fall, we'll be announcing selections for most of the major competitive awards. We're coming up on the $4 billion for Smart Grid, which is a key enabler of making a electrified transportation sector work. The first $150 million of the $400 million for the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Energy, ARPA-E, as we're calling it. And what's fascinating about that, we've been going through those selections over the last several weeks, is the level of technology innovation in this space is truly extraordinary. And our ability to achieve the kinds of 5- and 10-fold improvements in several of the technologies that are key to the success in this sector, our confidence coming out of that process in the ability of technology innovation to enable us to achieve those kind of goals is much higher than it ever has been. And as we get a chance to talk about some of those innovations, we are hopeful and confident that the market will in fact realize how powerful technology innovation is as part of this story. We've got just received applications on Friday night for $2.4 billion in manufacturing tax credits, a 30% tax credit for clean energy technology manufacturing in the United States, including battery manufacturing. And we intend to have a consistent flow of Section 136 and Title 17 loans that again target key areas in this space. It is a very exciting fall as we work through here. There's not a lot of time for sleep, but there is a lot of excitement in terms of what we're trying to get done here. Again, we see these investments as a down payment. This is the first step on a journey, and it's a journey of 20 years or so to build the kind of energy and environmental future that the United States requires. And our hope is that if we make that kind of down payment, if we make this first down payment in a thoughtful way, that we then attract the right amount of private capital, we create the right kind of market infrastructure, and the private sector can take it from there. And conversations like those which are occurring in this conference are exactly the kinds of discussions that we need need, because we need to push policymakers and business and academia all to come together and plan for the future, because it's a whole series of different parts that are coming together to create a set of infrastructure that's different from what we had in the past. As we think about it, this is a very competitive process, as such, it will be a little bit messy as we work through here. One of the things that we were struck by is the level of technology innovation really raising the competitive bar. One of the things that we see in the Department of Energy, somebody comes in and says, "I've solved the problem." And we see that about 5 times a day. And all you have to do is fund my widget, and it's the answer. And when you look at something like the technologies we have here, we've got batteries now that you can buy for $1,000 a kilowatt hour, and we're pretty confident the ones we funded, you'll get to $500 a kilowatt hour. And in the next 5 years or so, maybe we get down to $300 a kilowatt hour. And yet you look at what's possible in the lab, and you say $150 to $200 a kilowatt hour, or if you really look at the advanced technologies, less than $100 a kilowatt hour. And you say, how do we make sure that as we enter these kinds of sectors, that we are in fact driving down that kind of curve, that we are creating competitiveness that will remain competitive over a long period of time as the technology continues to improve. The second observation about this space is that this is a global, the global competition is raising the bar. The Secretary came back from China a few weeks ago, and his first observation walking in the door to our senior staff meeting was he said, China gets it. China understands that this is not just about what they do in their domestic market. This is about capturing a global market and taking a market leadership position in a global marketplace. And we need to make sure that the United States achieves its energy and environmental goals, and in so doing creates a set of industries that are competitive on a global basis, that we capture our fair market share on a global basis, driven by the kind of innovation that can occur in this country. There is also, very importantly, InterFuel competition here. One of the things, as people look at the Department of Energy's funding profile, you realize that we're funding batteries and transportation electrification, we're funding conventional engine technology innovation, we're funding biofuels, we're funding natural gas, we're funding hydrogen fuel cells. All 5 of those areas have significant performance improvements against them. One of the things that again, in terms of competitiveness that we keep focusing people on is the improvement potential in the conventional engine technology is very significant. And so if we want batteries and transportation electrification to win, it can't just be better than the current conventional engine technology. It has to be better than the next generation conventional engine technology and the next generation biofuel technology, because the rate of change in each of these categories is very, very rapid, and we should not underestimate the technology potential in some relatively boring kinds of technology areas. And then finally, one other thing that's quite important is that design innovation is raising the technology bar. Part of this is about what do customers buy? What will customers actually adopt? One of the things that we're quite interested as we look across the technology spectrum is how different companies use the different kinds of innovation to change the customer proposition. So you can use batteries and electrification in a vehicle to drive down the total cost of ownership. You can use it to drive down the first cost, you can use it to drive down the operating cost, or you can use it to improve acceleration, safety, and creature comforts in the car. And how the various automakers choose to make choices, choose to use that kind of power, to use the design attributes to make something that is appealing to the customer, I think ultimately may determine which pieces of this actually win. Because it isn't just about being the best technology, it's about being the best technology that the market will in fact adopt. And I think that's where we're beginning to see the kinds of innovations that may determine the winners over the long term. So what does success look like? I talk about 3 things: innovation, infrastructure, and incentives.